name is Bob Miller, manager of the Roll-to-Roll team with IT Supplies. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This webinar is the first in an educational series that we are calling RIP Week. Today we are joined by Ryan Lee, North American Sales Manager for Wasatch. Before we get started, I would like to mention that all attendees will be muted throughout the webinar to reduce background noise. During the webinar, we encourage you to make a note of any questions that you may have. At the end of the presentation, we will hold a Q&A session. At that time, feel free to type whatever questions you have in the presenter's chat box. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Ryan Lee. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, so let's get this rolling. Okay, welcome everybody. This is, it's a kind of a one-way introduction. Wish you could see faces, hear some voices, but sit tight and we'll get this going. Give you a good introduction to Wasatch Soft RIP. Bob gave me a quick introduction. I'm the sales manager for Wasatch, managing primarily the US and Canada. As a sales manager, I do get involved with a considerable amount of training and some application support. So I do know the product and enjoy working with it and helping customers solve their problems. So let's jump in here. Being the first RIP to present, I thought I'd touch on some of the basics, explain a little bit about, okay, what's a RIP? Some people may have been working with RIPs for 10 years, know everything about it. Others may be new, jumping in. So let's just review quickly kind of the background. RIP, first of all, what does it stand for? Raster Image Processor. Okay, what does that mean? Really, that's just means that we're taking information from different file formats, RGB, CMYK, etc., and rasterizing the data and translating it into language that the printer understands. Okay, so essentially it is a printer or cutter device driver. Okay, so any printer that you're using, that you're printing to, essentially has a driver, and that is essentially a RIP. Okay. Now, when you talk about RIPs, though, you're usually talking about an additional product that adds some production tools, some extra color management, and workflow tools. Okay, and that's what we're going to review specifically regarding Wasatch, and help you understand some of the features that we bring to the table, right? So let's jump in here. So there's some common features that RIPs have added over the time, right? When digital printing first came out years ago, there was a need recognized to make things easier to print on a wide format printer. You've got this width of however many inches, 40, 60, etc. Not all my files fit that. I've got a whole roll of media. How do I take advantage? Okay, that's really where RIPs, I think, came to life and become a necessary tool in your print production, right? So common features that you're going to find with pretty much any RIP is some simple nesting tools. You've got again this wide roll and a bunch of images at different sizes. How do I get all of those onto, fit that roll and not waste a bunch of paper. Okay, you'll have queues to handle files coming in and going out. Queues help manage your work. There's tiling tools to break up large images for car wraps or to fit around windows, things like that. RIPs will also allow you to scale or crop files to fit what you're trying to print. If your source file isn't already properly managed or sized, RIPs will help you do that. Most have added some cost estimation or some cost tracking as well. With Wasatch, the way our estimator works, it allows you to bring in a single file or build a whole layout, nest all of your images, and then estimate very closely what your ink and paper are going to cost to print that job. There's some other factors that you can add as well if there's other elements that are part of the final product. You can add some other costs based calculating on per square foot or linear foot, things like that. Okay, there's some color matching features. Most RIPs handle cutting as well, not just the printing part. And there's simple things to help with automation like hot folders. Drop a file into a folder, the RIP can take that and print it. Okay, from my perspective, those seem to be fairly common features that you're going to find with just about any RIP that you look at. Okay, so let's take a look at some unique things that Wasatch has. First one we'll talk about is our tracer. Okay, the tracer was originally released as a feature to help with print and cut. Okay, so say this frog here was a file that somebody pulled off the internet as just kind of a low-res JPEG. There's no spot colors in this to determine your cut path. So rather than opening it in Illustrator and adding layers and name colors and whatnot, SoftRip would allow you to just trace the image. Basically, we're looking at what's the white background and where's the pixel data. Okay, with this particular graphic, we added a fairly sizable spread, right? So the path is going to follow the marching ants. Typically, by default, it will actually follow right along the edge of the pixels and trace that out. So depending on what you want to do, some will choke and have the cut line follow within the ink or spread, things like that. Okay, so that's where the tracer started, was to add a cut path file so that once you've printed the job, we've added the marks, you're then able to send this cut path data directly to a GraphTech cutter, for example. Okay, where we went with the tracer is the ability to add extra tools for white ink handling. If you've got a like a flatbed UV printer, or for example the direct-to-garment F2000 from Epson, you need to be able to print white ink underneath and then the CMYK over the top. Okay, so you can use that tracer again if you don't have either a spot color to define where the white will go. The tracer will add that for you. There are some other features that we have for white ink handling that I think are fairly unique. We can, as mentioned, define white from around this path that the tracer created. We can add a white flood to the whole artboard, the whole page. Sometimes that's necessary, especially for doing some color management when you've got some patches and things like that, you just need to put a bunch of white behind it. Okay, we can add white as well, just to similar to the trace, where it's just looking at wherever there's any pixel data. If there's any color at all, we're going to put white underneath that. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So there's a variety of tools that we add. We can also handle a file that has transparency in it. Basically anywhere where there's a transparent background, we don't print anything. Okay, no white, no, we just let the substrate show through. Which, if we're going to print this, for example, onto like a black T-shirt with the F2000, there wouldn't be any point in printing white and CMYK over the top of this. We're just going to let the black of the shirt show through. Okay, so they could design this, just make that transparent in the design, and you're not going to get any ink right there. Everywhere else, you're going to have a bit of white. Okay. So we also make it easy to control that white channel. There's some sliders to adjust your white density, so you can get the right feel and appearance that you're looking for. Okay, so that's the tracer. Let's talk a little bit about variable data. Okay, if you want to personalize any print, variable data is the most efficient way to do that. If you've got someone who wants a name added or a date, a picture, they can submit a spreadsheet with all this information, different columns, and SoftRip can add those elements to your background graphic and do it very efficiently, much more efficiently than opening the file in Illustrator, typing in the name, save, and doing that 50 times, right? This feature has helped us get into label printing for those that need to print variable serial numbers, right? On a part or a wine bottle, something like that, you want to have a little bit different serial number for each label going out. We can add QR codes as well, barcodes, things like that, right? So variable data, it's a nice feature to have. This is an extra cost, just as a heads up. It's not an included feature, but something to take a look at if you're interested. So where RIPs have gotten into recently, again, is automation, helping to bridge the gap from a file being designed or uploaded or emailed, getting that through the print process and out the door to the customer. Okay, there's different software that we've worked with to integrate different web to print and e-commerce software packages that are out there that are taking files that maybe a customer is uploading, and we're integrating with that with those other applications to smoothly get files out the door. This one little workflow here describes a feature that we have where essentially when an order comes in, there's a barcode that's generated, and that's tied to the file that needs to be printed. So this work order gets printed with a barcode that ends up in the operator's hand down here, who has a little scanner. He scans that, and that tells SoftRip to reach and pull the file that is tied to that work order. Okay, so eliminates mistakes. The operator only has to know how to scan a barcode, and the correct file is going to get printed. We can add barcodes as well for down the road, the next step in shipping. Shipping personnel can scan a barcode and have that specify where a file or where the job needs to be shipped. Okay, so helping you improve your bottom line, make things work more smoothly, and getting work to where it needs to be. Textile printing. This is an area where SoftRip is very strong and very much in demand. It started off textile-wise for screen printers needing to print film positives. Our ability to halftone and separate a file appropriately and produce high-quality results is something that in this wide format world is unmatched. Okay, so screen printers then started adding things like direct-to-garment and sublimation. So they were already familiar with Wasatch as a company and have grown and gotten into other different types of textile applications where they're printing home furnishings, where there's a pattern. Okay, they start off with a small graphic, could be like a 10 by 10 file, but it needs to be repeated, maybe 60 inches across, but they're printing yards and yards and yards of this, right? So you don't want to create one big file that would be huge to manage. Let the rip do the repeat, and if it's handled correctly by the rip, you won't notice at all where the file starts and ends. No faint lines, okay? So textile, there's one main advantage that SoftRip has technology-wise that I believe is the reason we're so much in demand in textile is 16-bit rendering. Okay, if you're trying to print a large gradient, especially on textile, if you're not handling the file correctly, you will get banding effects. Okay, so I'm not talking about printer banding where there's a feed issue or a dropped head or something like that. This is tonal banding where most rips are 8-bit. The majority of rips are 8-bit. And when they try and print a gradient, sometimes you can see steps. Okay, you can do further research on this. We don't have a lot of time to dig into this in detail, but they've got 256 steps, where with 16-bit, you've got 65,000 steps to range from 100% gradient down to 0. It really makes a big difference. Okay, color management. Our color management workflow is simple to understand. You've got a simple workflow chart. You can apply correction curves, input profiles, change rendering intents, apply an ICC. Under calibration, you've got ink reductions and linearization. Goes to halftoning and out the door. Okay. Color management experts like SoftRip because it does what you want it to do, and the controls are completely open. We don't do a wizard that makes decisions for you. We allow the controls to sit there open, let you determine where you want your ink limits to be, and so forth. Okay. We've got some good spot color matching tools. In reality, you can apply good color management, good ICC, print a color accurately. You go to the customer and they're not satisfied. They don't necessarily want accurate color. They want it just to match some other job, okay, that was printed previously or done through some other technology, right? Matching, even if it's inaccurate, is more important than that accuracy. So there's ways to do some spot color replacements, especially if you have something like a densitometer or a spectrophotometer, like the X-Rite i1 Pro 2. It would allow you to scan that patch that you're trying to, or that color you're trying to match, okay? and SoftRip will generate a series of patches that are all similar to that color that you scanned, right? And with that, you can decide, just visually, let the customer choose if they're available. Okay, which color do you want, right? And you can adjust when these patches are generated how similar or dissimilar via delta E setting. You know, how close do you want all these initially? And you can go through repeated steps to find a color that they like. There's RGB values that are given to each patch. And once you've decided what you like, then go ahead and open the file in SoftRip. You can do a spot color replacement, enter the RGB values, and you know what color you're going to get. Okay, gives someone who's not a color management expert very powerful and efficient controls to help customers get the color that they want. So, Bob, how are we doing on time?
Well, we got several more minutes. Do you have more slides, or shall we go ahead and include the information here?
Well, I think I've got enough slides. If I've got a couple minutes, I'd like just to open up SoftRip and rather than just using some screenshots, just open up some of the windows in SoftRip and give those that are unfamiliar a little bit of a view as to what the software looks like.
Perfect. I think people would really enjoy that.
Okay. All right, so let me jump out of this and into SoftRip. Okay. So our software is utilitarian is maybe the word to describe it. It's not the prettiest Steve Jobs designed software. It's not been our goal to make it look pretty. The software doesn't need to be pretty, that your prints need to be pretty, and you need to be able to use the software, get up and running quickly, and make things efficient. So I've gotten feedback consistently that users like our software because it's just efficient. The ability to open files, make simple changes, get the job out is as simple as it gets. So it could be, here's our layout tool. Let's open up a file. Let's see what I've opened recently. Here's like a linearization target, not an ideal file that you would typically print as an example, but okay, we've got a file here. Let's say we need to print 50 of these. So I'm going to right click to open up this menu, and let's add copies. We need 50, so I'm going to add 49. Okay. All right, so that's not real efficient use of the paper. So let's take a look at some of those nesting tools. Let's do tightest fit. Give that a second to calculate. Okay. If I want to add some gaps, I can add an inch in between or set whatever your number here, whatever size gap you want. Okay. There's our layout. Go ahead and click the little printer icon and away it goes. Okay. Once you've printed, you can see what jobs end up in the queues. So you can reprint those. There's an output column that shows you how many times the file has been printed. Okay. Some simple things like that. If you want to be able to look at the file in a little higher resolution, you can open it on the Job tab. And again, use the sizing, tiling, trace, etc. and manipulate this as you see fit. Okay. You can take a look and see as well. I like our info tab. helps me see what the file is made up of. Right, so this is 100% cyan. So what colors, with the ICC and everything in place, you've got an output row below it that shows the percentages of each channel that actually are going to be used to print that. Let's show as percentage, makes it a little easier to talk about. Right, so we're 100%. With ICC in place, we're actually going to use 73 cyan, 1% magenta, 5% yellow, no black. Okay, so we can look at that for different elements in the file and just get some good information. Especially when you open a file, you're expecting certain colors to come out, you're not getting it. Okay, let's look at this. Is it vector? Is it CMYK? You may have files from a customer that are not designed exactly the same. This helps you kind of see that if you're getting different colors. Okay, the input's different, right? The output is different because the input is different. So there's some useful information. So where are we at? Should we switch over to Q&A?
Sure, we can go over to Q&A. Hang on just a second. I'm going to change over the presenter. Okay. There we go. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Ryan. That was great information. Let me go ahead. At this time, I'd like to open up the group for questions. Please take a moment now to type your question into the chat box. While we wait for your questions to appear, I would once again like to thank Ryan for this great information that he shared with all the attendees. I'm sure everyone now has a better understanding of how Wasatch can help streamline their business. Let me take a moment to tell you a little bit about IT Supplies. IT Supplies is everything to help you make the perfect print. Our printer lineup includes latex and flatbed printers by HP, solvent, dye sublimation, and DTG printers by Epson, and aqueous printers by HP, Canon, and Epson. Other products now include color measurement and profiling equipment by X-Rite, Barbieri, and Teshcon, as well as light booths by GTI and Used. On the service side, IT Supplies has now joined forces with colorHQ.com to offer more knowledge and training when it comes to color management. Our recently expanded offerings include on-site color management support and G7 certification. As a thank you for attending this webinar, we would like to make you a limited time offer on color measurement equipment by X-Rite. For the remainder of this month, we are offering special discounts on all i1 products. In addition to these discounts, we are offering bundle prices when you combine these instruments with the purchase of Wasatch software. Now, does anyone have any questions at this time? I'm looking in our chat box, and it looks like you must have done such a great job because I'm not really seeing anything at this moment. Yet I know we have a bunch of attendees out there. So, you know, we're always here to help at IT Supplies, and of course, Ryan at Wasatch is always here to help. He helps us tremendously. We are easily, you can easily reach us at 800-771-9665. If you have a sales rep here, just please ask for them. And if you're calling in at any other time, don't forget to mention that you participated in RIP Week. Hang on just one second. We did have a question about Ergosoft. Someone's using Ergosoft for textile, and they just wanted to understand a little bit more about why they might want to choose Wasatch in the future here.
Okay, that is a good question. The primary reason that we see customers, well, there's a couple of them, why customers are switching to Wasatch from ErgoSoft. That 16-bit rendering and the gradients, uh, that's one of the main things that Wasatch just clearly has a technological advantage over ErgoSoft. Uh, Second thing, I would say support, just the access to Wasatch support on different levels, technical versus more just general application understanding, meeting different workflow needs, things like that. Value as well. Honestly, really it all comes down to your bottom line. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck with Wasatch than honestly just about any other RIP. Those would be the main points. If someone wants to follow up later with more detail, I'm certainly available.
Okay, and another question just came in. Can you show us how Wasatch works with RGB printing to say a P20000 or Z6200 or something along those lines?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure there's really a lot to demonstrate. Let's take a look here, see if I've got right. So again, this goes back a little bit to what a RIP is doing. It's taking the file and
would you like to be the presenter, or do you want, or do you have something to show, or?
so let me find. Yeah, I can maybe demonstrate this. Well, really, what it comes down to is the ICC profile. That plays a big part in handling RGB or any other what we would consider a hi-fi ink. That's anything outside of CMYK or the lights, right? So orange, green, blue, reds, violets, etc. The ICC is going to play a big part in where and how those inks are used. SoftRip takes the file, the input file, again, whether it's CMYK or RGB, does some initial interpretation, looks at the input profiles, right, the color space it was designed in, rendering intents, help us make decisions about what to do with inks or colors really that are outside of the overall gamut, what the inks can actually print. The ICC then will utilize those hi-fi colors to help expand the gamut or reach colors that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So I hear from users and dealers that they like how much we actually use those extra channels. I think it may be the way that certain RIPs that have their own internal ICC profiler doesn't actually utilize those extra channels very much at all. Where if you're using Wasatch with i1 Profiler, X-Right's product, you'll be able to take advantage of those extra channels more than some RIPs that have an in-RIP profiler. So that's one thing I didn't clarify very much is we don't have our own profiler. We've recognized that there's excellent products that are out there that we don't need to try and reinvent the wheel. So we integrate closely with them, utilize the ICC, but pick up Profiler. Bob would be able to help you if you're trying to profile yourself using those hi-fi inks, how to take best advantage of those, and SoftRip will be able to handle that and give you the results you want.
Sure, and that's exactly why in the specials that we're offering this week with the Wasatch I1 Publish, that actually for $19.99 or bundled for $18.99, that actually comes with a ICC profiling software. Also, the I1 ISIS is bundled at $27.99. With that, you would need some additional software, but that software is $899, and that's the I1 Profiler software. So again, you can feel free to contact your reps, your representative over at IT Supplies, or call our Color Services group here, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through the scenario that's specific to you and the printers that you have and help you any way we can. Great. Well, again, that concludes now our first joint webinar between Wasatch and IT Supplies. I want to thank you, Ryan, for your help in coordinating this event. I hope that everyone will walk away from this webinar more knowledgeable about Wasatch and the benefits that it can provide each user. Please don't forget to contact your IT Supplies sales representative about the fantastic savings that we've discussed now through the end of the month. Thank you again to all our attendees. You've been tremendous, and we hope that you will join us again tomorrow as we continue this webinar series. Take care and have a great day.